Midnight Story Circle. Like and subscribe for more.
It was one April evening when I asked my kids if they wanted to have our annual backyard campout. The weather was supposed to be perfect. Clear skies, cool air, one of those rare spring nights where everything just feels peaceful. The kids were excited immediately. They started talking about s'mores, falling stars, sleeping bags, flashlights, and who would get the best spot inside the tent. It was something we did once a year. Nothing fancy, no campground, no long drive, just our backyard. But to the kids, it felt like an adventure. We set everything up before sunset. The tent went near the back of the yard. Blankets and sleeping bags were spread across the floor. Pillows were tossed into every corner. My husband got the fire pit going, and soon the whole backyard smelled like smoke, chocolate, and toasted marshmallows. For a while, everything was perfect. The fire lit up the kids' faces. The sky slowly turned dark, and for a few hours, nothing felt wrong. Nothing felt dangerous. Nothing felt like it was waiting. But looking back now, I remember how quiet the house seemed. The windows were dark. The garage was shut. Everything looked normal. But sometimes, normal is only what danger looks like before you notice it. We stayed outside for hours. The kids ate s'mores until their hands were sticky. We watched the fire burn lower and lower until it was mostly glowing embers. Eventually, everyone got tired. The laughter faded, the conversations got quieter, and one by one, we crawled inside the tent. The backyard settled into silence. Crickets chirped in the distance. A light breeze moved through the trees. I could hear my children shifting inside their sleeping bags. My husband was beside me. Everything felt calm, safe, like home. I remember lying there, thinking this was exactly why we did this every year. A simple night together, a memory, something innocent. Then I closed my eyes, and for a few hours, I slept. I don't know exactly what woke me up. There was no scream, no crash, no obvious sound. My eyes just opened. At first, I stared at the ceiling of the tent, confused. The air felt colder than before. The fire outside had nearly gone out. The backyard was darker. Still, too still. Then I looked around and realized all three of my children were awake. They weren't playing, they weren't whispering, they were just lying there, staring. One of them whispered, "Mom, we can't sleep." Something about the way they said it made my stomach tighten. All three of them looked uncomfortable. Not scared exactly, but uneasy. Like they had all woken up for the same reason, even if none of us knew what that reason was. I tried to stay calm. I asked if they needed to go inside and use the bathroom. All of them said yes, right away. No arguing, no complaining. They just wanted to go inside, now. My husband woke up enough to hear us moving and said I might as well take them. So I unzipped the tent. Cold air brushed across my face. The backyard looked empty. The fire pit glowed faintly. The house sat only a few steps away. But for some reason, that short walk felt longer than it should have. We crossed the damp grass and went inside through the back door. The house was silent. The kitchen clock ticked softly. The refrigerator hummed. One of the floorboards creaked under my foot. Nothing was wrong. At least, nothing I could see. The kids went toward the bathroom while I waited near the living room. One sat on the couch. Another leaned against the wall. I remember thinking we would all be back in the tent in a few minutes. Maybe we'd laugh about it in the morning. Maybe it was just too cold outside. Maybe nobody could sleep because the kids were too excited. That's what I told myself. Then, the entire house shook. My husband's Dodge Challenger started in the garage. Not outside, not down the street, in our garage. The engine roared so loud it vibrated through the walls. I froze. My son looked at me. His face had gone pale. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" He nodded. "Yeah." A few seconds later, my husband came into the room, still half asleep, confused. "What are you talking about?" I looked toward the garage door and I said, "I think someone just started your car." He stared at me, then said, "That's impossible. The keys are upstairs. They're in my nightstand. For that car to be running," he shook his head, "someone would have to have the keys." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The engine continued to rumble through the walls, deep, loud, unmistakable. If you've ever heard a Dodge Challenger start, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There was no mistaking that sound. Someone had started his car. Then his expression changed. Without another word, he walked to the hallway closet, opened the door, and pulled out an old wooden baseball bat. That's when I realized he believed me. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he was hoping there was another explanation. But there wasn't. Something or someone was in our garage. The kids had gone completely silent. My oldest son stood frozen beside me. My daughters quietly moved closer, each grabbing one of my arms. I could feel how tightly they were holding on. No one cried. No one screamed. The house had become so quiet that the only thing we could hear was the steady rumble of that engine. My husband looked back at us. "Stay here." I nodded, but as he walked toward the garage, I found myself following him anyway. I couldn't explain why. Part of me wanted to run. Another part needed to know what was waiting behind that door. Every step toward the garage made the engine sound louder. The smell of gasoline drifted through the air. My husband tightened his grip on the bat. I reached for the doorknob. My hand wouldn't stop shaking. I took one slow breath and turned it. The garage was almost completely dark. At first, I couldn't see anything, only the glow of the Challenger's dashboard. The gauges lit the inside of the car with a cold blue light. Then, my eyes adjusted. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. He wasn't searching through the console. He wasn't trying to steal anything. He wasn't even looking around. He was simply sitting there, both hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, like he'd been waiting. I couldn't breathe. Every muscle in my body locked up. I tried to yell. Nothing came out. I pointed toward the car. My husband looked at me. "What is it?" I swallowed, barely able to get the words out. There's a man." My husband stepped forward. The garage light flicked on. The stranger slowly turned his head. I'll never forget what he looked like. Dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, old glasses that sat crooked on his face, a scruffy beard, light brown clothes covered in dirt and stains. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept comfortably in weeks. But there was something else, something that still bothers me. He didn't look surprised. He didn't panic. He didn't jump out of the car. He simply looked at us, as though he'd expected this moment all along. My husband raised the bat. "What the hell are you doing in my garage?" No answer. "Get out of my car." Still nothing. The stranger slowly opened the driver's door. He stepped out carefully, never taking his eyes off us. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten us. He didn't even try to explain himself. He just stood there, silent, watching. The kids were behind me now. I could feel them trembling. I remember thinking, please don't let him come any closer. The seconds felt endless. Then, something hit me, hard. The garage door. It had been locked, padlocked from the outside. I looked around. No broken windows, no damaged walls, no forced entry, nothing. Then I remembered something even worse. There was only one way someone could have reached this garage. They couldn't have come in from outside, which meant they had to come through the house. My heart sank. I slowly looked back toward the hallway, toward the bedrooms, toward the living room, toward every place we'd been sleeping. Every room suddenly felt different. Every doorway looked darker. Every shadow seemed deeper. A thought entered my mind, one I still wish I'd never had. How long Had he already been inside? Minutes? Hours? Days? Or had he been walking through our home while we were asleep, long before we ever found him? That question terrified me more than the stranger himself, because if he had been inside before that night, then we hadn't discovered an intruder. We had interrupted one. And what I remembered over the next few days made that possibility even harder to ignore. People often ask me what happened after that night. The truth is, the stranger wasn't the part that stayed with us. It was everything we realized afterward. The campout ended before the sun came up. The tent stayed exactly where it was. The fire pit was nothing more than cold ashes. No one talked about sleeping outside again. Not that morning, not the next weekend, not the following year. Without ever saying it out loud, our family tradition simply ended. Some memories become too difficult to revisit. Life went on. At least, we tried to make it. The kids went back to school. My husband went back to work. I cleaned the house, cooked dinner, did everything I normally did. But something had changed. The house no longer felt like home. Every room carried a question. Every shadow made me stop. Every unexpected sound made my heart race. Even during the middle of the day, I found myself checking closets, looking under beds, making sure every window was locked. Not because I thought someone was there, because I could no longer convince myself no one was. Then the memories started coming back. Little things, small things, the kind of things you ignore because they seem harmless. Cabinet doors, always open. I'd close every one of them before bed, then wake up, and somehow, one would be standing open again. Kitchen drawers, halfway pulled out, lights left on, lights turned off. At the time, we laughed about it. It's an old house. The cabinets don't latch. The wiring must be bad. There was always an explanation, until there wasn't. One afternoon, I stood in the kitchen, looking at an open cabinet door, and for the first time, I didn't blame the house. I asked myself a different question. What if someone else had opened it? That thought never left me. It followed me from room to room, day after day, night after night. Every strange memory suddenly felt different. Not supernatural, not haunted, just unsettling. Because there is something far more frightening than believing a house is haunted. It's wondering if someone had been living inside it without you ever knowing. Around that same time, something else had been happening. My youngest daughter and I were constantly sick. It wasn't anything dramatic, just enough to make everyday life difficult. Headaches, fatigue, a feeling that neither of us could shake. Doctors never gave us a clear answer. Eventually, we decided it was time to move. Not because of ghosts, not because of stories, because we simply didn't feel at peace anymore. About a year after everything happened, we packed our belongings, loaded the moving truck, and drove away. I remember looking back one last time. The house looked exactly the same, quiet, ordinary, as if nothing had ever happened there. Only later did I really think about where it had been built. Directly behind a mortuary, beside an old church. Maybe that meant something, maybe it didn't. I honestly don't know. But I do know this. The moment we left, everything changed. The uneasy feeling disappeared. My daughter and I stopped getting sick. The sleepless nights ended. For the first time in a long time, we felt like ourselves again. Years have passed since that night, but sometimes, when I'm lying awake, I think about that stranger. I think about the way he sat behind the wheel, calm, silent, almost as though he belonged there. Then I remember something that still gives me chills. He never told us his name. He never explained how he got inside, and no one ever gave us an answer that made any sense. Maybe there is one, maybe there isn't. Some mysteries stay with you forever. Now, before I tell you one last thing, I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Imagine hearing your car start inside your garage. Imagine walking toward that sound, believing it has to be some kind of mistake. Then imagine opening the door and finding someone already sitting there, not panicking, not running, just waiting. If that happened to you, would you ever truly feel safe in your home again? Because I never did.